gosh, look at the crowd.
Come this way.
Those who spread goodness radiate happiness to everyone around them. Introducing LOLC Finance Credit Cards. Fuel the goodness in you.
Welcome to LMD TV. I'm Ashwini Vedakan, and joining us this week on Talking Business is the Executive Vice President and Group Chief Information Officer for John Keells Holdings, Dr. Ramesh Shanmuganathan. Welcome to the show, Doctor. It's good to have you with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on the LMD TV as well.
Now, Doctor, do you believe that Sri Lanka should be positioning itself for investment in the technology sector much in the way Singapore and Dubai have done?
Yeah, definitely, because Sri Lanka definitely, I think, has everything to gain in terms of the aspirations for the 2025. I think in terms of raising the per capita income to $5,000, wanting to improve the exports to about 20 billion, and also the FDI by about 5 billion per year, right? So I think we are pretty much probably need to look at how Singapore and Dubai have developed themselves, making them technology hubs, and I'm sure that we have a lot of cues to take from them and fast track our adoption in those lines.
And how can we compete in this space?
Yeah, so that is where I feel we need to kind of differentiate ourselves, because we are pretty much late into the whole rat race. So we, I think, have a couple of options. Maybe kind of positioning ourselves as a innovation R&D hub, as a tier 2 innovation R&D hub, and also probably get into products in terms of the what I would call as a third platform, the mobile analytics, cloud security, as well as in terms of everything as a service kind of concept, where we are able to kind of broad base our market reach beyond the shores of Sri Lanka, because Sri Lankan market is quite small, right? So if we want to kind of realize our aspirations, obviously we need to have probably a grandiose vision in terms of going global, right? So I know a couple of companies have achieved that, but I think we still don't have the critical mass. So that is where I feel maybe we also need to look at the co-innovation option, where we attract MNCs and big kind of corporates to set up their maybe R&D co-innovation centers or even backup DR centers, so that we kind of create a critical mass and a branding for Sri Lanka, which is much required in that space.
Slascom envisions a $5 billion industry by 2025, creating new jobs and tech startup firms. How do you view this vision?
So as I said, I think Slascom probably has done its part in terms of taking progressive steps in terms of establishing a brand, in terms of island of ingenuity, which is good. But for us to get to $5 billion in terms of exports, there are a lot more that we need to do than branding, right? So I think that is where we need to take cues from countries like Israel, Ireland, even countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Dubai, in terms of looking at what is our USP, right? Because we can't be in India because we don't have the supply side of the equation in terms of IT skills and competency. So we got to be a niche player. So if that is what we are kind of envisioning to do, we also then need to look at what is that we need to build, because Slascom alone won't be able to achieve that vision, right? So that is where I think if you really look at countries like Ireland to Estonia to Israel to Dubai or even Singapore, the government itself and a lot of the stakeholders have come together in realizing the dream of making the country technology hub, right? So that is where I feel we are lacking, though in some parts we have a vision and we are doing our part, but it is really not making that impact that we wish to have had from a global point of view, right? So I think that is where I feel most of the stakeholders have to come together and have a clear top-down drive in terms of achieving the vision, right? Similar to Singapore and Dubai. Like if you take, like if you look at San Francisco, like, or even in US, it's the Silicon Valley is more in terms of like a bottom-up kind of growth, right? Because that economy and how it kind of spanned or lends itself for a bottom-up way of growing that to become a technology hub. But from a Sri Lankan context, given where we are, we also need a bit of a top-down approach in terms of driving it, like what Dubai did, like a smart city, smart nation, what Singapore did in terms of, the smart Singapore, the digital Singapore kind of initiative, so that you also then the government leads a critical mass of activities which incubates, attracts investment, attracts multinationals, and also kind of then lays the foundation for the country to kind of then piggyback on that and leapfrog, right? So I feel that is what is lacking today. So obviously with the current government, I think there's a lot of initiatives on the way on the digital Sri Lanka and stuff. So if that starts building traction, you will also see mainstream players, multinationals also wanting to get involved in those projects. Then you will obviously see the talent getting kind of developed. So it will have a kind of an impact in terms of creating that avalanche effect what we need for the country.
What steps need to be taken to attract global tech firms to operate in or from Sri Lanka and also help startups thrive and reach global markets?
There are a couple of factors I feel you need to look at. Obviously, the Sri Lankan positioning, right? So today, every country is kind of aspiring to attract investment, right? And obviously in technology, because that is the latest way. So the question I think we have to ask ourselves is, why would an investor come into Sri Lanka, right? So then that is where we need to look at how do we kind of unify a brand to make it kind of significant and also be able to differentiate ourselves amongst our peers, like be it India, be it Singapore, be it Malaysia, even from a regional context, be it Bangladesh, Philippines. So we have to then differentiate ourselves, and then that's why I said we could become either tier 2 technology innovation or R&D hub, or then get into products in terms of anything as a service, right? In the third platform space, which is a growth space, including security to AI, data analytics, cloud, in terms of even cloud-based applications, right? So that could be the way to go. But the challenge that we also need to look at is, now, if we are attracting investment from overseas, we also need to have a stable FDI policies as well, right? Because a person who is looking to invest on these kind of things will look at a longer term view of the country, right? So the stability, economic stability, policy consistency, the reforms in terms of, for them to bring in expat workers into the country. So all of that would matter, right? So that is where you need to look at how Singapore and Dubai has really kind of modeled their way through. Is some things for us to learn from, because we can't be having a protectionist policy and hoping for everyone to come and invest in a country like us, right? So we also need to look at bringing certain reforms in terms of being able to attract those investors and also to nurture them to grow with us.
Doctor, how do we develop talent and upscale skills within the country?
So developing talent is it's a chicken and egg situation, right? So it's obviously we need to understand we have a supply side constraint in terms of number of students which our education system puts out, right? So obviously we will have to, if we are trying to aspiring to position ourselves at cutting edge in terms of as an innovation hub or R&D hub, we also need to cross-pollinate that with skills from overseas, right? So that is where I feel we need to kind of maybe liberalize our education system, right? Let others come and set up tertiary institutions in country. We should be able to, like Singapore and Dubai and India or Malaysia, attract overseas students to come and study here, right? So we should be able to, so we should stop thinking Sri Lanka is like has a China wall around us, right? So we have to integrate ourselves to the global ecosystem, and we should think like a global village, right? So for us, why should we think that our talent can only come from Sri Lanka? Right? If we can attract talent from anywhere in the world, why not, right? And that's how we should look at it. But in the process, we also then need to enable that knowledge transfer happens to Sri Lankans. So the Sri Lankans are also able to upskill themselves. So today, if you look at Dubai 20 years ago and now, today the locals are much more educated and knowledgeable than they were 20 years back, right? But if they pursued the protectionist thing, they would have taken another 50 years to be where they are, right? So that is the whole thing that we need to learn, right? So our policymakers also need to wake up to this rather than paying to the gallery. Try to kind of look at, put country first and make certain policy decisions, which would be tough decisions to make, but much required.
And on that note, we'll be going in for a short break. Welcome back to the show as we continue our conversation with the Executive Vice President and the Group Chief Information Officer for John Keells Holdings, Dr. Ramesh Shanmuganathan. Doctor, do we need to review our immigration policies in order to bring down talent which we can learn from?
Definitely, because that is why I said, even at a point when they were debating this thing about free movement between India and Sri Lanka, I was one of the person who was for it, right? Because the issue is, you will never become competent by being protectionist, right? So you have to face competition. So if you are saying we want to go to the global market and to be reckoned with, we have to be competitive, right? So if you are saying our guys are not good enough to get employed on merit, competing with Indians and whoever is out there, then how are we hoping that we will be competitive by going out and trying to sell our software and services or products? Right. So obviously, I feel we need to relax that and ensure that we kind of protect our interests in terms of talent development. And maybe you could have a higher bars in terms of expats coming in terms of salaries, in terms of other protectionist mechanisms to kind of protect our interests, but not in terms of stopping them from coming into the country.
Would you say that our education system needs to be revamped in order to enable us to catch up in the tech race?
Yeah, definitely, because our education system, I feel, is archaic. Because today, everything is maybe a couple of clicks away in terms of knowledge. So today, we should stop testing memory in power of people's ability to memorize things. We have to probably test application of knowledge, right? So our testing mechanisms to education system needs to get revamped. I think we have to move away from this, long closed book text to open book text, where we are able to test kids in terms of their ability to learn things and apply things in a real life situation, right? And we have to also liberalize the education system, because I feel today we are kind of fragmented in terms of the system itself. So if you look at, we have X who sits for O levels, then 95% drops out to the A levels, right? Then we have maybe less than 1% of the X going to the tertiary education systems, right? So I don't know in what probably do we hope that we will create the if we want to be a knowledge economy that we claim to be, we are not producing enough knowledge workers to even accelerate our economy, right? So definitely that needs to get rehauled, and I feel education system must get liberalized to an extent from the state-owned kind of model, and you have to maybe allow private institutions also to kind of, in a regulated fashion, to come in and open out that whole thing, similar to like Singapore and Dubai, because that is how, if you look at today in Dubai, you have universities from US to UK to everything, right? And we probably started way ahead of them in having universities and stuff, right? We have had universities since 1950s, right? But Dubai probably had their first university maybe in the 80s,
Data security is a growing concern. If we wish to attract investment in the tech sector, our security needs to be on point. Where does Sri Lanka stand in this regard?
So security, as I said, is a growing space in terms of opportunity as well as threat. So more digitally inclusive we become, obviously cybersecurity is going to become a significant threat. So that is where I feel we also need to be in step as we evolve into a digital economy. Then the security aspects also has to evolve, including data privacy. I'm sure that there is a bill which is going to get passed about data privacy. So data privacy, data security, all of that have to be in step. So today, as a country, I don't think we have enough professionals in Sri Lanka to manage that better. And that's definitely an opportunity in terms of incubating that talent pool. And also it's a business opportunity as well. Right? Globally, security is one of the highly demanded skills. Second thing could be the data scientists, right? So these two are obviously growth opportunities for a country like us, and it's a niche market where we are not too late to get into that race, right? Because it is pretty kind of early start for most countries, and if we really get act together, we could definitely compete globally as well.
Our final question for this evening, Doctor. What about our English language skills? Do they complement the IT sector and its needs?
That's the million-dollar question is how do you define literacy, right? We claim that we have a high literacy rate, over 90%, but what does literacy mean? So the definition of literacy is no more just being able to read and understand the language, right? Because as you become progressive in terms of economy, the baseline in terms of literacy also needs to get refined. So I'm not too sure when was the last time we have redefined the benchmark for literacy in Sri Lanka. So I am really kind of puzzled. If we have a literacy rate of greater than 90%, why aren't we having enough people to go around in the knowledge economy? Everywhere we look, people are struggling to find the right people to be employed for the right job, right? So I think that is where I feel English is one aspect of it. But what is the benchmark? Even if you're saying English literacy, what is the benchmark? If we want to be globally competitive, that benchmark could be different. But if you're saying we just want someone to kind of read and speak English, that's a different benchmark altogether, right? So it all have to be aligned in terms of our aspiration. If we want to be a global economy, knowledge sector which is trying to propel and compete globally, then obviously our English standards are not good enough in terms of if you take a benchmark across Sri Lanka. I don't think we are there.
Well, this has been an insightful conversation, but unfortunately we've reached the end of our segment. Thank you for joining us on the show this evening, Dr. Shanmuganathan.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day.
Coming up, we have an update on Sri Lanka's burning issues. Stay tuned.
You love the feeling of being renewed. To stay beautiful every single day. To breathe just like we do. Because you are truly delicate. Protecting the ones who've been with us through the years. With Sayalac Care, the only wood coating that truly protects you. Sayalac Wood Coatings from JAT.
Welcome back to the show, and here's an update on the island's burning issues. With the third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic ongoing and travel restrictions imposed across the island in late May, respondents to the latest LMD Nielsen's IQ Business Confidence Index continue to express their concern about the virus. As the virus caseload and number of fatalities continued to increase at the time of the exclusive survey, 93% of respondents cited the impact of the pandemic as the most pressing issue for business in Sri Lanka today, marking a slight decrease from the 96% recorded in the previous month. Next in line in terms of business concerns is inflation, with 70% compared to 58% in the preceding month of those consulted highlighting it as an issue. This is followed by growing concerns about political instability, according to 36%, up from 31% in the previous month. Of the survey sample, while 35% point to bribery and corruption as an issue when it comes to corporate circles. As for the most pressing national issue facing Sri Lanka today, the spread of the coronavirus remains the main concern, with an overwhelming majority of 92% versus the 94% in May of respondents saying as much. Furthermore, 64% of those polled considered the economy to be a national concern, a slight increase from the 61% recorded in the preceding month. Meanwhile, bribery and corruption is deemed to be worthy of attention from a national perspective as well, according to 35% of those consulted by the pollsters. And that's all we have for you this week. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.